Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your favorite sis, Terry. I think I need to change my greeting. Happy New Year, Happy New Year, welcome to the new year. I hope you made it safe into the new year and y'all are safe. Yeah, let's see what 2023 has in store for all of us. Re boneng gore, you know, e tlela ka eng ngwaga o montšha. Happy New Year, sweeties. I've had this hairstyle for like the longest time. It doesn't want to leave me, and it needs to leave me. I've had it since November last year, and I'm coming into the new year like I need to change my hairstyle. I can't, I live alone. The perks of living alone is that you can't undo your own hair. And now that I need to have it undone, I don't have any visitors. And all along, I've been getting visitors and I didn't need to undo my hair. You see what I mean? That part. Life. Welcome to today's video. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'm currently sitting on 270 something subscribers. Thank you to each and every one of you who has subscribed. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And please share with your friends and family because our target for 2023 is 1,000 subscribers. It is 1,000 subscribers, kid. That's all we want. We don't want a lot. So without blabbering too much, let me get into today's video. Oh no, yeah. Before 1,000 subscribers for 2023, we're not asking for a lot. We don't want a lot. We just want 1,000. So, and that's what I'm gonna work at. And I promise I'm gonna try my best to be consistent this year. I'm gonna try and give you a video a week, and I can do it because honestly, I spent all of this time sitting around doing nothing, watching, being on my phone, wasting time on Twitter, you know, when I could actually be productive and recording videos and doing productive things. So I am committing to one video a week which is like 54 videos for this year. So definitely we're doing that, or more. If I can do 2 or 3 videos in a week, definitely. I also want to think if I travel, I'm thinking of doing like travel vlogs, and then but I'm also considering and thinking about once in a while daily vlogs type of things, but my life is boring. But yeah, we'll see how that will work, or going out to restaurants and experiencing the food and going out to all of these nice, because Johannesburg has very nice restaurants, especially, you know, those restaurants that are not at malls and stuff like that. Like a person starts a restaurant and the food is really good and stuff like that. So maybe something like that. Do a review of places like that where you can go eat, where you can go hang out in JHB, honey. Yeah, I'll think about that. Oh my gosh, your Mac will sleep soon unless you plug into a PowerPoint. What is this, honey? I'll be back, y'all. Let me charge this. There's no way I am charging this laptop. Oh, excitation. Like I was saying, I'm gonna try and record a video a week, especially if I'm not load shedding at night. Also, it's quieter. Like I said, I live near a busy road, so during the day it's a lot. You guys can hear cars in the background, and you probably can hear them now as well. But because I'm so used to them, I can't really hear. I hear when I edit. I can hear the cars in the background because the mic picks that up. I don't know why. When I'm like, I don't know if anybody knows the setting where I can like don't pick up background noise or something. Let me know. All right, so the video, your sister's gonna do a little research and watch videos. So the video that I'm doing is called I agree with Stephco about pretty privilege. And Stephco is a YouTuber who's in the States, and I would see her video on the timeline a lot about pretty privilege, and I would really like just skip and do my thing, right? And one day I was like, let me just give this video a chance, you know. Curiosity killed the cat on that day, you know. And finally got to the cat, and I was like, click, let me watch. And I was taken in, and I was like, okay, I hear you, Stephco. I hear you, girl. You're giving me points to think about. You're giving me things. And I really walked away from the video thinking about pretty privilege and the dynamics of it and the nuances of it. And I was like really interested in like, oh, okay, I think I should have this conversation on my channel. And one of the things that Stephco says in one of her experiences was that, which I walked away with, and I was like, yeah, I hear you, was when she said that there was a day where she looked pretty. I'll link her video below in the box below, where she walked into a restaurant. She got ready that day. She looked dolled up. She looked pretty. She did her makeup, outfit on point, and she really felt and looked beautiful. And she thought that, oh my God, I'm gonna attract attention from boys. Boy, the way I look so cute, a boy is gonna approach me. And she walked into this restaurant, and there was a group of guys sitting there, and none of them looked at her. In fact, nobody barely looked at her in the restaurant. And she got to the table and she sat, and she was going to be joined by a friend, and the friend came like 15-20 minutes later. The friend walked in. The friend didn't even get to the table where Steph was sitting. Somebody blocked her way and was like, do you want a drink? Bought her a drink or offered her a drink. And the guys that didn't turn to look at Steph turned and looked at her. And this friend of hers is considered beautiful, light-skinned. Like, she attracts men wherever she goes without even batting an eyelid or doing too much work. She's somebody that will attract men. So Stephco goes into that and also details her experiences with pretty privilege and what that meant to her and how she viewed herself. It's quite an interesting video, and I think it had 1 million views on YouTube. You've probably seen it. Some of you have probably seen this video, and it went viral on YouTube. And by the time I watched it, I really enjoyed it. And there were people who were doing, because the video was viral, obviously, then people started jumping onto the conversation and were doing the reviews of her video. And there were a lot of people, to even details it in other videos, that there were a lot of people who were coming at her, like, oh, yeah, what do you think? What are you talking about? And all of that. And what baffles me about that, because I saw like 1 or 2 as well, I did my research, and the people are like, I'm like, why would, when a person is explaining their lived experience, why would you say that person is lying or have something against them detailing their lived experience? I mean, it's not your lived experience, it's their lived experience. Why would you have an opposing view to their lived experience instead of having an opposing view to say, oh, but my experience was this? Why are you calling her out of her name or calling her names for saying what she did, for speaking her truth? Like, oh no, you just want people to like you, you want attention, and I'm like, but this person was doing a sociological analysis of pretty privilege, where she was pulling facts and speaking about society and all of those things. Why are you making it personal? Anyway. So what does pretty privilege mean with the research that I've done, and what I consider to be pretty privilege is that we live in a society that has certain beauty standards, right? And that has set certain beauty standards. And these beauty standards are highly Eurocentric. And in them being Eurocentric, the Eurocentric beauty standard is that what is considered beautiful in a Eurocentric view is that blonde, blue eyes, skinny. Yeah, that type of person is considered beautiful with a small nose, and your features are sitting right on your face. You have won the gene lottery and you look beautiful and you are pretty, and by that you are considered beautiful and sociable and lovely and whatever, and people want to be around you, want to marry you, want to be with you, want to be your friend, your neighbor. You know what I'm saying? So that is basically what. And then if you're a man, also blonde, blue-eyed, tall, you know, chiseled body and all of those things. That's what pretty privilege basically means. But then we understand that there is more than one race that lives on this planet, and therefore pretty, then there will be very different variations of what is. But the core, at the core of it, a Eurocentric view of what beauty is, or what being pretty is the ultimate goal. As close as you can look to blonde and blue eyes, the better, and the higher you are ranked in terms of what society deems as beautiful. So, yeah. However, I have a different view of what black, of what pretty is for me, and also on the African continent, pretty means different things, and different people do different things to kind of express that, and to kind of like, put markers against that to say, okay, this is pretty, these people are considered pretty, and so on. So for me, when I was growing up as a child, the first person that I saw, or the one person that I was living with and who influenced me, was my mother, obviously. And how she carried herself said to me what beautiful is or isn't, right? If she carried herself in a particular way, that would determine to me that, oh, this is pretty, this is not. And for me, just because I was seeing my mother being herself and living her life, she didn't put any creams to try and lighten her skin, and she didn't speak of herself in any demeaning way as a dark-skinned, because my mother's dark, is a few shades darker than me, and she didn't speak of herself in any way demeaning about her features or her looks, and therefore I was like, oh, my mother's pretty. I was like, oh my God, my mother is so pretty. She's got a beautiful skin. She's got beautiful hair. She would jump between an afro and relaxed hair. She never really even plaited braids or a straight back or anything like that, or wore weaves. She said those things would give her tension and headaches and stuff like that. So she was never really one to wear any kind of hair, be it braids or wigs or anything like that, other than her own hair. And if she wore her own hair, it was usually like in a perm, in an afro perm, or it would relax. She would relax it, or she would cut the relax eventually and grow out an afro and perm the afro. So she looked my mother was quite low maintenance and beautiful for me, and I considered that beauty. And I would go out in the world and look at other people who were dark skinned, and they would remind me of my mother, and I would say, oh my God, in my head, that person is pretty. And all the dark skinned girls that I would come across, I would consider them beautiful for me, because that was my experience with beauty. You know what I'm saying? And at the time, I didn't really think about my own beauty when I was a child. I didn't even think about my own beauty, because it didn't come into play, because I was a boy at the time, and therefore nobody said anything about my looks. My looks weren't a factor when I was a child. It's only when I grew up then I can get into that kind of thing, to deep how my relationship with pretty privilege and how it affected my life. I'll get into that a little bit later. So also part of the way Africans look at beauty is that, and I think this is also quite a universal thing to say, a dark-skinned man is often preferred over a dark-skinned woman. You know, everybody wants a tall, dark, and handsome man. Even white people want tall, dark, and want handsome white people. You know, so they want tall, dark, and handsome white people, and black people want tall, dark, and handsome black people, and a tall, dark, and handsome man. I mean, look at your Idris Albas, look at your Winston Dukes, and every other Tate Diggs, Morris Chestnut. I could go on, you know. Look at all of those men and how everybody swoons and woons over them and wants to be their partner. All our hearts were broken when Idris Elba married Sabrina. We were like, no, we want him for ourselves. He must just stay unpartnered, unmarried, so he can be all our men in our heads, you know. Our man in our heads, and so yeah, that's kind of the African view of beauty and being pretty. But otherwise, we all know. Listen, life is nuanced. Life is complex, and I may be leaving some things out here that may be factors to you, right? Or they may make sense to you, because that's the complexity of life, is that we will view things differently, and things will be layered differently, and things, you know, will happen to us differently, even though we might have the same kind of features. I might look the way that I look, and like, oh yeah, I had a bit of people considered me pretty, and somebody that looks like me were like, oh no, I wasn't considered pretty. You know what I'm saying? It's just a numbers game. I don't know what numbers, but it's a numbers game of things happen differently for different people. And with that being said, is that pretty privilege is pretty much adjacent to patriarchy and misogyny and racism and all of those things. It plays within that system, and it works within that system. And a lot of the time, speaking of dark-skinned black women, a lot of dark-skinned black women have spoken about how society has treated them. And we know with our own selves and our cousins and sisters and women who were once young girls, how they grew up as dark-skinned women. You know, how they would not be believed if they said somebody tried to violate me, because why would somebody want to try and violate you? You're not pretty. You're not desirable. So why would you? And that made dark-skinned women vulnerable to abuse, you know, and they would speak about how when you go to open a case, you're disregarded because you look a certain way. You're not, when you're out in public getting services, paying for services, somebody else who's more lighter skinned than you gets better treatment than you would, you know. For the longest time, we wouldn't see dark-skinned black women on TV. We wouldn't see dark-skinned black women we would see them on the runway. You know, they would be fetishized. There are Naomi Campbell's and Alec Wax. They would be fetishized on fashion runways. And in the fashion industry, they were fetishized, but they were still mistreated. And they have stories of being mistreated and underpaid and overworked. You know what I'm saying? So those things tie in to pretty privilege and what we deem as beautiful. And what pretty privilege does then is that it amasses the people that society deems as beautiful some social capital. It amasses them some privilege to move through the world. You know, as a pretty person, you move through the world differently from somebody who's not pretty. You have more access. Like, for instance, I had a friend who was pretty when we were growing up, and she has passed away, and I'll talk about that at a later stage. I'll talk about her story at a later stage. She was pretty. She was considered pretty. She was light-skinned, you know. She almost looked mixed race, and we call that colored here in South Africa. She almost looked colored. And one thing about my friend is that we would not have a dime to our name. We would not have a rand or a cent to our names, but we would get to the party, wherever the party was, wherever we wanted to go. And we would definitely get there and eat and get drunk and come back home. Definitely those things would happen for us because of her. And she knew she was the Beyonce of she knew she was the Beyonce of the group, you know. and life would not happen without her. Even in our fights, she would always remind us, because y'all are eating cause of me. And she was right. Facts are facts. So that is the kind of thing that pretty privilege does for people. And so it's adjacent to like patriarchy, misogyny, and all of these things. And for me, how has pretty privilege affected my life, right? As I said, as a kid, it didn't mind, especially when you're labeled a boy child. It doesn't really matter. You're not looked at from a point of beauty, but young girls who were my age when we were young, you could hear when people would say, "Oh, you're pretty. Oh, you're not pretty. Oh, and I'm Yamani." And a lot of the times, that kind of talk would be directed to girls more, and even boys. Granted, there were boys who were dark skinned, who were called names for being dark skinned, but it would happen more to girl children than to boy children. And when the boys grew up, it became a thing. Like I was saying, a dark skinned man, like, ooh, they became desirable, as opposed to women, to dark skinned women. They wouldn't be desirable. So yeah, for me as a child, nothing. And as I was growing up, when I still identified as gay, I knew that maybe because I don't look a certain way, that doesn't amass me any kind of privilege in terms of dating or going out and finding partners, and it made me feel insecure. It really made me feel insecure about putting myself out there and going out to queer spaces and looking for partners or whatever, or being even approached, because I would have friends that were skinny and pretty, and they would get approached and go on dates or whatever the case is, and that never really happened with me. And I would internalize that when I was younger. I would internalize, oh, the problem is me. I need to lose weight. I need to look prettier. And really, there isn't much you can do. There isn't, unless you've got money. But there wasn't much I could do with myself and how I looked with my face, especially. And that's why for the longest time, I was rebellious against losing any weight, because I didn't want to lose weight so I could attract somebody to love me, because now I looked a particular way. I was like, no, if you're gonna love me, you're gonna love me at this, and if you're not, it's fine. And for the longest time, I internalized that, and until I got to a point where I was like, look, listen, the world is a shitty place, and all of this nonsense has nothing to do with you. Right? It's got nothing to do with who you are and how you need to see yourself and how you need to value yourself. You need to start liking yourself and loving yourself and appreciating you and telling yourself that you are pretty and carrying yourself in that way. And yeah, stop internalizing the self-hate, because it doesn't work for you. It's not working for you. It hasn't done any good for you. So you need to let that go. And then I started then obviously looking at myself differently and carrying myself differently, and when I don't experience any kind of being in a relationship or having a partner, I didn't internalize that. I was like, whatever, it is what it is, And I think that's where then I would cultivate stronger relations with friends, because I was like, I'm unlucky. I'm unlucky in love, so let me be lucky in friendships. And I was, and I am still lucky in friendships, and I'm able to cultivate meaningful friendships. That's why my friend Welcome, who's been on the channel, and I, when we talk about relationships and whatever, he's hopeful about being in a relationship, and he's hopeful about me being in a relationship. And I'm like, ma'am, like I've said in a previous video, that, hey, give me zero, ma'am. Give me zero. This looks like too much effort that I must put myself out there and do all of this work and yada, yada, yada. However, when I started identifying as trans, because in the gay community, my weight worked against me, because you have to look a certain way to attract a boyfriend, a gay boyfriend. You have to be skinny and have a six-pack and whatever. And I never had, or I never was that. So my weight worked, because pretty privilege is a combination of everything, right? Of how your face looks and your body. And if you tick all the boxes, the higher you move on the hierarchy. So, yeah, when I was gay, my body worked against me. But then when I started being trans identifying, girl, did I get a market? I have a market. I'm so I'm privileged in a way to say that I gain weight in a kind of a feminine way, and also on this side of the spectrum is that men like thick women, thick femme people, men like that, black men like that, and they like it a lot, and I could literally line up men for months if I wanted to, but I don't. I don't, but I could in and also it's the same thing when the one thing that I participated in when I was gay identifying is having sex partners, right? Because eventually somebody just desires your body and you give them whatever they desire, and you have that relationship where a lot of it is based on sex and people just come in and have sex with you. And that's more or less the same thing here on this side of the spectrum where a lot of men are turned on by my body, they want my body, they want to experience, want to sleep with me, and then they specifically say, I like your nyash, I like your rolls, I can't wait to hold on to those rolls, baby, you know what I'm saying? There's a market, but then also, with that said, you don't want to get to know me as a person. You want my body, but you don't want to get to know me. So, hence, I'm not even participating in that kind of thing anyway. On this side, it's good to know. It boosts my ego a little bit to know that I am desired. There are people out there who I don't even have to move a muscle to look in any way, shape, or form. There are people right now, as we speak, that I could go on Grindr, I could go on Tinder, and find somebody in the next hour to have in my bed. But as I said, that's not what I want. So yeah, that has been my experience with pretty privilege, and also another thing that I need to add on to that about my own experience, and I'm sure a number of people on the spectrum of pretty privilege can identify to what I'm about to say. You're right? Then with realizing that, oh, okay, your looks and the way you look, and especially the way you identify as gay, femme, might not get you anywhere, right? Might not get you anywhere just by you looking the way you look, as opposed to your friend who is cisgender female, light skinned, considered pretty. Her looks can get her far, right? They can literally take her to Cape Town, literally have taken her places, right? By just looking the way she looks. You don't have that, and that's not going to happen to you. So what do we do next? And like, I think also Stephco said this is, well, then I had to work on my personality and be funny and be memorable and be, and have a personality that's memorable, that people are like, oh, I like that person. Oh, I remember that person, And also over and above that, over having a personality is you've got a brain. So work on it. Be smart. Be knowledgeable. Do well at school so that you can go far. You know what I'm saying? So I would then use that to my advantage, and how that then helps me with in as much as my looks may not get me places or whatever, is that once I do eventually get into a place, like for example a job, because I remember having a conversation with a welcome to say, do you think how do you think you would be far in your career if you were prettier or whatever, or you had pretty privilege? And my answer was yes and no. Mostly no, because I was doing the wrong thing anyway. I was in the right space anyway, but No, because I know myself. I know how to sell myself. I could literally have been anywhere or gone anywhere or been in any kind of job. The only thing that probably in the past held me back was my sexual orientation and identity in the workplace, being overlooked just because, not necessarily because I couldn't do the job or anything, but just like, you're okay, you're funny, you're you're the office entertainment, so you don't want to be a supervisor, you don't want to be, a manager or anything like that. So, maybe I might have been overlooked, but it was purely, I purely based it on my gender identity or sexuality, not necessarily on my looks, because I know that in terms of having the brain and the ability to do things, to speak, to lead, whatever, I could literally do that. Yeah, yeah. So, and probably a lot of other people identify with that, like some people who are pretty, is that you're pretty, your looks have gotten you in the door. Now you need to work. You need to sell yourself, and if you can't, sometimes maybe you'll just get the job because you were pretty, but you won't move far. Or I don't know, man. Or you learn that, also I need to couple it with a bit of brains or not. And some people just cruise on the looks, or some others are like, yeah, I'm pretty and whatever, but I'm also smart. I've seen a TikTok of a woman who's like, she's blonde, blue eyed, beautiful, and she's like, I know I'm pretty and whatever, and how that works against me is that no one really listens to me because people are just looking at me and seeing this beautiful person. But when I really have something to say, nobody really looks at me or listens to what I have to say. And somebody else might say similar or the same thing, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And I just said it 3 seconds ago, which goes to show that nobody's really paying attention to me. And with that said, is uh, we there's also a dark side of pretty privilege, right? But before I talk about that quickly, let me just do this next point. Is that because of all of that, and pretty privilege is a business, right? Over and above all of the other things and nuances and all of that, it's a business because what society determines is a thing people want to now, especially now that you can buy things, is that they want to buy the aesthetic that everybody says is beautiful and pretty. People want to buy that type of aesthetic. People want to lighten their skin and look a few shades lighter so they can be considered beautiful. And that can give them access to spaces, that can give them access to things, right? The BBL trend that we're seeing now is because we determined that this particular body type is beautiful, and this particular body type can take you places. And of course, someone is going to go and get a BBL and lighten their skin so that that body can get them into spaces, and that body can give them access, to a different level or kind of man. It can give them access to especially in the States, give them access to like actors, rappers, musicians, rich people, move within a rich society of people because you look a certain way and you are then trophied. You can become a trophy girlfriend, a trophy wife in those particular circles. Not sure now because of social media, because in this country that body is like a regular body. That's how South African women look, tiny waist, big hips, big bums. A lot of South African women like that. But that did not even exempt us from having women who are in the limelight, who are in the spotlight, from doing those kinds of surgeries as well, so that they can fit in, so that they can climb higher on the social hierarchy of who is deemed beautiful and who isn't. I recently saw a Twitter thread of somebody saying beautiful South African women, and the majority of them were either naturally light skinned women or manufactured light skinned women on that list on Twitter. No shade. No shade at all. I'm just laying facts. And, yeah, so speaking of the before I speak of the dark side, another point that I want to make is that, and it's pretty privilege can take you far. Like, for example, look at the Kardashians, right? They came in as a pretty family, people who looked beautiful, and that then gave them social capital, right? It gave them social capital. They were able to hobnob and move with A stars and start appearing on magazine covers, and they started using that attention for their own benefit, and they started monetizing that attention. They started, making money from that. Kylie, fat. Kylie made her money from lip kits and all of that. It's because of how she looked. She filled her lips with fillers and put gloss and lipstick on them, and people like that. And out of that was born a business idea that everybody now wanted to look like Kylie and have Kylie's plump lips. You know what I'm saying? It's exactly that. And there are debates after debates to say, oh, that family is not talented. No one in that family is talented. They don't have any kind of talent that they can ride on. It's just they look a particular way. They have a certain look. They have certain bodies. They were one of the first people to have BBLs and stuff like that. Now it looks like they've removed them because they want to go back to looking white and not appropriating black bodies and blackness. You know what I'm saying? So it's quite nuanced. It's a thing that we can sit down and I say then link it back to patriarchy, link it back to misogyny, link it back to racism, and even the dark side of pretty privilege. The Bonabo, the Kardashians, for example. Again, we can say that okay, this privilege, their prettiness or their looks has gotten them this far. However, that did not exempt them from having trashy men as partners and husbands, and it did not exempt them from having trashy men, because you would look at them and assume that, oh my gosh, men are going to be falling all over their feet and they're going to treat them right and want to stay and whatever. I mean, Chloe, she found the bottom of the barrel and she wasn't it. She made a hole in that barrel to go under the barrel to go find Tristan. Oh, I am so messed. She went under the barrel to go find Tristan Thompson. And then and Pretty Privilege gave Kim access to Kanye. You know what I'm saying? It gave her access to him because he was one of the richest rappers, one of the most successful and at the top of his game and all of that, until he flipped and went crazy on her too. Left her as a single mom of 4. And she's pretty, She's pretty. And we don't expect that kind of thing to happen to a Kim Kardashian, but there she is. She is a single mom of 4. She's a single mom of 4. So it's the dark side of this. Pretty Privilege also has a dark side. And I want to do another video speaking of the dark side of Pretty Privilege, and this is where I'll go into detail about my friend who passed away, a little bit of detail without, a little bit of detail. And I was having a conversation with a friend who is gonna come on the show. We were talking about Pretty Privilege and all of that, and somewhere in the conversation she said, there were times there have been times where I've gone to bed without eating, and I blurted out without even thinking, my unconscious bias. I said, no, you went to bed without eating with that body? And she was like, that's it. That's exactly it. That people assume because I look like this then everything is fine for me, and life is going well for me, and I'll go to bed with a full stomach. When sometimes I'm in between gigs, you know what I'm saying? I'm in between jobs, in between gigs, or I haven't had a gig in a while, and why would I be exempt from life happening from me? And I was like, shit, I get it. I hear you. I get it, because life will happen to all of us, and life happens to all of us, and it doesn't pick, or just because you're pretty, you're going to have less struggles than somebody that isn't. It's just that pretty privilege gives you social capital. It allows you to move in circles and spaces that you wouldn't have moved in before if you weren't pretty. You wouldn't have moved in those types of circles. So, but however, it doesn't exempt you from experiencing life and having life experiences. And one of the things we even spoke about with my friend, that we will speak about when she comes onto the show with Sandy, is that she was like, in this body, at times I felt like it was letting me down because it was getting me too much attention that I wanted. Than I wanted. There are times where I don't want attention. I don't want anyone to look at me. I don't want people to speak to me or approach me or shella me or anything. And because of this body, it would just be an obvious thing that men want to talk to you, they want to approach you, they want to entice you into sleeping with them or having your body. And as a child, even you could, there were situations where you would find yourself getting molested or almost getting molested because these adult men would want to take advantage of you. And I was like, shit, I never really looked at it like that. So that was a very interesting perspective and very interesting point to come from or to have experienced, And I was like, yeah, we should definitely look into that. So as I said, I don't want to have long videos, but this one has been quite a long one. I'm going to watch it, and if I like it, this is going up. If I don't, I'm going to record it again. But yeah, guys, that's it. As I said, I'm going to try and record a video a week. I've got a few ideas that I want to talk about. I got a road, I said pretty privilege. And I wanted to do a video, an examination, an in-depth examination, because I did it like in that other video of Kanye West, because I went and I watched Genius and read some stuff. I had the content. Where is the content, man? It has this laptop. I had content and I'm not seeing it anymore. Anyway, I had Kanye content and it's not here anymore. And I wanted to talk about friendship breakups. I actually think I should do a video on friendship breakups. Okay? And then I also wanted to do a video on a review of Renaissance by Beyonce. But I'm thinking of doing a video that speaks about Beyonce's body of work from Lemonade. That whole, yeah. And then what I'm going to try to do as well is jump onto hot topics, because I'm going to have these detailed essay type of where I do a lot of research, but then I'm also going to find when there's a trending topic that I can jump on it quickly, make a video quickly, and try and post it timelessly. So this is what I'm hoping for 2023, because like I said, there was a Kanye conversation happening last year when he was doing what he was doing and having all of those Jewish slurs and saying one of those anti-Semitic things. There was that around that time. This is when I was like, okay, let me do an in-depth Kanye, but now we've moved on. We're not talking about Kanye anymore. Other things are popping up. So yeah, I'm gonna try and when I do find something that I can plug into, try and do it timelessly, because I like those kinds of topics and those kinds of videos also tend to do well. So yeah, road to 1,000, spread the love, spread the magic, tell a friend, share with a friend. Thank you for all of those people that have shared my content. Thank you very much. This is this year 1,000 subscribers, sweetie honeys. Ke bua thata tle e reng ke tsamaye ne ke le rata lotlhe le It's midnight.